Big international story tonight. India's west coast being battered by cyclone Thembekile. It's caused extensive damage and is thought to be the most powerful cyclone to hit the country in decades. The weather has strained the country's already overburdened healthcare system. For an update on this, we're joined by Prasad Kunduri, the former senior associate editor at the Tribune India, joining us from New Delhi tonight. Prasad, always good to speak to you. Let's start with the latest on the extent of damage and loss of life as a result of this cyclone.
Good evening. Yes, the damage has been quite extensive in terms of the number of the damage done to buildings, damage done to electricity poles, damage done to trees. Fortunately or unfortunately, if I were to say, we have reported loss of 4 lives. But one of the good things that India has had in the last many years is the disaster relief, in particular the National Disaster Management Authority and the state disaster management authorities, backed up by very good predictions by our meteorological department, have been able to prepare people and move them to safe locations. That has been the reason. Of course, damage has been done, and what we hear from the latest is the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, will make an aerial survey of the region to assess and also speak with officials and state government authorities to have a first-hand understanding. And please do remember, Prime Minister hails from the state of Gujarat, which has been battered by this cyclone.
And what about the people, Prasad, who were missing off the coast of Mumbai after a vessel began to sink? Have they all been found?
Well, the last report suggested some 60-odd, the search was on for them, but almost some 200-odd numbers were rescued from barges by the Indian Navy in several sorties. That has been one of the good signs. About 3 to 4 barges, they were reported that they had sunk, and the Indian Navy had mounted operations since it got all clear whether to launch it, rescue things. So that's where we are, and that is the latest as I got before I moved on to the television today, please.
And these 60-odd people who you say are still missing, is the search for them still on?
Well, of course, the weather permitting, and also now, of course, it's the weather. It's quite dark here and out in the. But the last we heard is the search and rescue operations were being mounted by the Indian Navy along with the other coastal authorities, including the Coast Guard.
Let's speak very briefly about the impact of the cyclone, which is adding pressure to a healthcare system in India that was already so battered with those massive patient numbers as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. How's this made it worse?
Well, I think we can look at it slightly differently. As I mentioned, there have been very good protocols to manage this kind of disasters that has been visiting various coasts of India, whether the east coast or the west coast. It's a cyclical and periodical around this time of the year. So the authorities and the administration are pretty well geared to deal with this kind of a natural calamity. Of course, the severity of the cyclone was quite heavy this time, but the good news, the weatherman tells us that the depression has reduced, and it has come from extremely severe to very severe. So the landfall has gone in, I think, around midnight, and the eye of the storm has hit the land, as they say. So we are going to witness some more rainfall in some parts of western, as we speak, Gujarat, of course, neighboring Rajasthan state. That's where it looks like. But since the loss of lives has been less in terms of numbers we have given in before, and largely people having been moved to safety because of the time that they had. But yes, corona remains an issue all over the country, and more so in these parts too.
Prasad Kunduri, always good to speak to you. Thank you very much for that update. Prasad is the former senior associate editor at the Tribune India, speaking to us about the latest disaster there, a cyclone that's now killed people, thousands more in evacuation centres tonight. It may take a few more months.